From afar, Dante Jr. watched his family toast. He tried to hide his desire to be with them, but knew he wasn't succeeding when his eyes kept drifting in that direction. He looked around for anyone to talk to, but Lei Song was still dancing with Solaris, and both seemed to be in their own world. Dante drew toward the stage to get a better look at the band. He stopped by the Omni Winds, but with just one airbender, and the fact that the music itself was a slow ballad, there wasn't much to see. The single bender just stood in front of the interconnecting wall of tubes and shot gusts of air into various kombucha holes, while occasionally moving the pitch knob back and forth for some trill and flutter effects. Junior looked over to the center of the stage to check out the water harp. The player, having already formed the requisite layer of ice above the harp, was now holding her hands out and moving her fingers like she was playing an invisible piano. As the player's fingers touched down on the phantom keys, the sheet of ice just above the harp would drip water on the strings below with harmonious precision. Dante marveled at how the tiny drops could make a sound loud enough to be heard over the rest of the instruments, but then noted all the mics around it. He counted 7, 3 on each side, and a large mic beneath the harp itself. Junior started to check out the sand kit as the song reached its finale. He had time to glimpse a tiny tornado of sand hitting 3 cymbals at once, creating a rolling effect with a speed only thousands of grains of sand could achieve before the miniature sandstorm came to rest in a long box beneath the kit. After a brief bout of clapping, the band began their next song. Dante started to walk away, but a strange sensation caused him to look down to see a polar dog licking his fingers. Junior began to pet it, but was soon confronted by Nene, who ran up and formed a protective stance between him and the polar dog. "No, don't hurt it." "I wouldn't do that, Nene. That's not what Kalari said." "Well, Kalari doesn't know me very well," Junior disputed, in a more defensive tone than he intended. "No, I don't believe you. Come on, girl, let's go," she said, while urging the polar dog away. Dante looked up to see several people gazing in his direction, including Lei Song and Solaris, who were both making their way toward him. "Everything okay?" Lei Song inquired. "Yeah, but I think I'm going to go for a walk." "Are you sure, Dante? I thought you might like to dance with me, even if it is to this oldies music," Solaris said with a sprightly smile. Dante couldn't help but grin at Solaris's playful suggestion. "Maybe next time," he replied, appreciating the invitation. "Okay, but you owe me a dance, all right?" Solaris reminded him. He walked off after giving a brief wave to the two and headed toward the tail-shaped shores of the island. Shortly before getting there, he saw the silhouette of someone near the shore. After getting a little closer, he recognized who it was. Lu Chan appeared to be startled by his approach. "Who's there?" "It's me, Dante," he said, while making his way closer. Lu Chan took a less defensive posture. "Oh, hey. What are you doing out here?" Dante inquired. Lu Chan replied sharply, "What are you doing out here?" "I'm an outcast. I'm supposed to be out here." "Ha, fair enough. Well, I'm not exactly an outcast, but I'm afraid I made a fool of myself with your sister." "Oh, well, I wouldn't worry about it. The way she's drinking tonight, she might not remember." The two looked out to shore for a while until Lu Chan broke the silence. "You know, your sister is really something." "Yeah, she's something, all right," Dante Jr. agreed, with more than a hint of sarcasm. "You two don't get along, do you?" "You could put it that way. You could also say my grandfather has a kind of nice house." Dante gestured to the mansion and then toward the statue of Varric, almost as large as Aang's statue near Air Temple Island. Junior looked down before going on in a more serious tone. "But don't get me wrong. I love my sister. I owe her a lot and would do anything for her. But after our father died, things have been a little tense in our family. Yeah, I noticed you and your mum don't seem to talk much either." Junior gave him a defensive look, and Lu Chan began to backpedal. I mean, it must be nice. My dad's always crowding my space. I wish he would leave me alone sometimes. You're lucky to have a dad, especially one as understanding as Lei Song, Junior assured him. Yeah, you're right. After a short pause, he added in a more somber tone, You're pretty lucky to have a mom too. The two stood in silence for a while until Lu Chan broke it once more. Hey, Dante, I don't suppose you would give me advice on how to get back on your sister's good side, would you? Kauna's work and research are her life, so you might want to start there. What is she working on? You know my sister, nothing short of changing the world. As the two teenagers continued talking, Gan felt his omnipresent attention drawn to a distant shore. He closed his eyes, and the world around him faded into new surroundings. The world rematerialized around Gan. The icy shores of Whaletail Island were replaced with the nearby coastline of Republic City. The statue of Varric transformed into Aang's revered monument, standing sentinel over Air Temple Island. Gan's unyielding gaze suddenly fell on a group of equalists off the shore of Republic City, looking toward the statue when one of them stepped forward, holding a remote. Time to change the world. He pressed a button on the remote, and a series of explosions went off around Aang's statue and near Air Temple Island itself. A moment later, a group of White Lotus members sprung to action. The White Lotus firebenders and waterbenders quickly moved to put out the flames, while the earthbenders took to reinforcing any damage to the temple's structure. However, none were able to make it to the statue in time, as it immediately began collapsing. A boy in garments akin to a White Lotus member awoke to the explosions outside his beloved home. He looked out his window in shock at the carnage outside, but was both relieved and impressed with the quick actions of his mentors. Thinking of what he could do to help while wiping the night from his eyes, the young man decided to take action. He reached out to the corner of his modest room towards his staff. A gust of wind tossed his lone ponytail, and a second later he leaped out of the window, staff in hand. Catching an air current of his own making, he quickly glided over to Memorial Island to see if anyone was hurt. After a couple of passes, he was relieved to find no one was on the island, but seeing the damage done to this sacred and personally beloved location filled the young airbender with an emotion he knew an aspiring White Lotus member shouldn't feel. However, on his third pass of the island and the ruins that now lay on top, the young man was no longer looking for survivors, and his eyes were quickly drawn to a group of people watching from the distant shore of Republic City. As the young airbender got closer, he could see they were all dressed in black, and the embers of hatred he'd been trying to smother threatened to reignite. "Equalist," Law sneered through clenched teeth. A moment later, his suspicions were confirmed as the first bullet narrowly passed him by. The spirit form of Rohan hovered high above Air Temple Island, taking in a bird's-eye view of the damage. His initial relief in seeing the quick response of the White Lotus members mitigating the damage was short-lived before he turned toward Avatar Aang Memorial and gasped in shock. The statue was completely replaced by a dust cloud. Tears started to build in the eyes of his mortal form, and Rohan struggled to keep his astral projection going. With the motivation of checking the island for survivors, he found the strength to send his spirit form into the dust cloud. He hoped to not find anyone, not just for the obvious reason, but also because he knew he couldn't help anyone directly in this form, but he could inform the nearby Lotus members if anyone needed help. Rohan felt relief in finding the island empty, but again, that relief was short-lived as he heard gunshots from the distant shore. His spirit rose from the dust cloud and quickly spotted a young airbender flying toward Republic City and dodging a volley of bullets as he made his way to a group of masked assailants firing at him from the shore. It didn't take Rohan long to recognize who the young bender was. "Law, no. What are you doing?" Meanwhile, on Air Temple Island, members of the White Lotus worked in concert, putting out flames and reinforcing structural damage. One of the lead members shouted orders to the others. "You three come with me. We need to check the other island for survivors." Rohan's spirit form suddenly appeared in response. "No need. I've checked, and the island is clear." The nearby White Lotus members showed brief shock at his sudden appearance, but quickly recovered. "Rohan, well, that's a relief. One less thing to worry about." Rohan continued grimly. "I'm afraid there is something else. It seems my brash grandnephew has gone after the people responsible for this attack." "What?" exclaimed the lead member. "I need you four to take a boat to Republic City. I will meet you there," Rohan stated before his spirit disappeared, leaving the four alone. "Well, you heard him. Let's go." Law's heart raced faster than the bullets he narrowly evaded as he soared ever closer to the Equalists. As he closed the distance, his anger and adrenaline surged, enabling him to expertly dodge their lethal projectiles. He was aware that engaging them head-on could be fatal, yet he could not bear their decimation of Memorial Island. As he approached the shore, a duo of Equalists unveiled immense cannons, launching expansive nets in his direction. With nimble dexterity, Law collapsed his glider, diving beneath the nets while employing his staff to unleash a formidable gust of wind before quickly remounting his aerial apparatus. The forceful blast sent the Equalists flying, providing Law with an opportune moment to descend and confront them directly. Law charged forward with vehement determination, his staff poised to unleash a devastating onslaught. In the instant before Law's wrath was made manifest, the spirit of Rohan materialized between him and the Equalists, an expression of deep concern etching his countenance. "Remember your teachings, Law. Vengeance does not bring closure," Rohan implored. The young airbender hesitated, his rage momentarily pacified by his venerable great-uncle's ill-timed intervention. Seizing this moment of vulnerability, the lead Equalist took aim and fired. While Rohan's mortal body was spared any harm as the bullet passed through his spirit form, the same could not be said for Law. Rohan was fated to bear witness as his grandnephew collapsed before him, the side of his head marred in crimson. As White Lotus members approached in haste, the Equalists slipped away in smokescreen and shadows, leaving a ghostly Rohan to lament over young Law's motionless body. Overcome by grief, Rohan failed to control his astral projection and awoke in his quarters. Eyes dripping, he gasped, "What have I done?" before rushing outside.